Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are back with the author of the Broken Road series. Excited to have Leigh Lincoln joining us again today and to talk more about her work as an author and how she even starts, right? How do you become an author? How do you get inspired to write? There's a lot to where we've gotten to know her, but for new time listeners out there, let's start off with a quick introduction. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, almost back to normal because we just had the hurricane. So
Oh gosh. Oh my
Georgia's
gosh.
strong.
Oh gosh. Okay, okay. Oh my God. I'm glad you're okay. Everything's all right?
at, at my house, everything's fairly okay.
Oh my gosh. All right. All right. We'll deal with it as we go. All right. So please tell us a little bit about yourself. Glad you and your family are okay.
So, yeah, I am the author of 4 inspirational novels. So each one has a different character who's on a spiritual, emotional, and physical journey as they share their story, face a problem, and then try to fix the problem and figure out what they need to do next.
Yay. And so let's talk in particular, yeah, how this works. So tell us about your work and then we'll get into how you become an author and the thoughts behind it all in the process.
Right. So I wanted to talk today because I get a lot of questions, a lot of from readers and from people and children even who ask, what is it like to be an author and how exactly do you create novels? Because I am independently published, so it works a little bit differently than when you just hand over your baby manuscript to a publisher, because I do pretty much everything from start to finish myself. So I get a lot of questions from a lot of people about how exactly does this work. So of course, the first thing you start with is inspiration, right? Because of course you have to start with a germ of an idea.
Yep.
So yeah, which is not easy. I a lot of times have an idea that I noodle around with for like a month, and then it goes nowhere. And then I've
It goes nowhere. Really? Come on. You just think about it at like,
Yeah. And so then I've like been spinning my wheels and I'm like, oh no. But this is why I actually have a book of short stories and I actually have a few published short stories because yeah, that's as far as they went. They made a great short story, but I couldn't take it any farther. We're all good. So but yeah, a lot of people don't understand that not every idea is going to produce a book. And that is one of the hardest things for people to understand is that first step. It sometimes can be the hardest one, is to come up with a winner of an idea that actually you can make work. And it and especially for me, I just really struggle sometimes. How do I do this? So for me, maybe it's because I'm a people person and I'll talk to anybody. I really started out with talking to a lot of people and to really think of all these people and all these places I've gone to and really try to like center in on one person or one place and then kind of work out from there. And that really helps me like narrow it down to at least something that's workable. And I know every author kind of has a different strategy for how they go about it, but that's how I start is trying to find one little kernel that I can do something with. For example, in the Road West, it's about an elderly woman who almost had an affair in her youth. Well, I heard this crazy story once from this elderly woman who talked about, she did something that she really regretted as a teenager and that she carried that guilt with her entire life. Well, that kind of a nugget was something I could use. Okay, I didn't use her story because that would have been unfair, but the whole idea of her story was enough to spark. And then I just took it and ran, right? And so this is how I work. And again, not every author's the same, but this is how I kind of roll. So yeah, and and for me, it takes about a year to come up with a manuscript that's usable, workable, doable, to from start to finish. And I know I'm kind of a turtle when it comes to these things, but for me, it's quality over quantity. So I'm okay with it taking a year to make a book.
Wow. That is awesome. I love it. And but how does it come to you? What do you think of, or just you start writing things down?
For me, I'm totally a spaghetti on the wall type of person. I'll keep throwing words on a page until something really starts sticking. And so I get asked this a lot. How many words go into a book? Okay, technically it's 50 to 70,000, right?
Wow.
But for me, it's over 200,000 because I throw so much spaghetti on the wall and then we
Mm-hmm.
have to like throw out all this garbage to come out with a book. So I actually multiply my work by like triple, quadruple because I'm putting in a lot of stuff that just is not usable. But that's okay because I don't even know where my characters are going half the time. And yeah, that's okay. I don't know where my story is going. I just let my characters talk to me as we're working along. And so I literally have my characters talking to me. I sit in my office. This is why my office has a door where I will literally talk to myself in the voice of my characters. And no, I'm not insane, because I know they say you should never talk to yourself.
True, right?
But but it helps me understand my characters better and it helps me see where they need to go because then I can really understand them better. And I've actually talked to another author recently who laughed when I said this and I'm like, "Oh, you totally think I'm crazy." And she's like, "No, I do this too and I thought I was the only one." I'm like, "Cool. I'm not the only one." And she was totally laughing at me cuz she does this too. I'm like, "Awesome." Yeah. So, it's whatever you need to do to make everything cohesive and make sense because it can't just be you that it makes sense to. It has to make sense to your readers. It
Yeah.
has to make sense to other people. It can't just be your crazy little world and you are the only one that makes sense to.
I think that's hysterical. I love it.
So I have this whole board on my wall with strings that connect all these little pieces of the puzzle because it is a puzzle. You're creating this whole universe for your
Mm-hmm.
character. So it's this whole puzzle and you have to make everything connect. And so yes, I talk to myself. Yes, I have this crazy board with all the pieces and then for a new book, there's a new board with new pieces and you know, it's just this whole crazy universe and it makes sense and but it is not easy and it's kind of insane.
Got it, got it, got it. All right. All right. Lee Lincoln, author. Remind us how we can reach you.
At leighlincolnauthor.com. That's Leigh lincolnauthor.com. You can get the links to all of my social, my newsletter, my blog. Everything's on my website. It made it super easy. You can purchase the books right from the website. Everything's just right there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Let's continue. All right. So by the way, for those that not know, what is going on in your world? You're in the middle of a book now, or how many?
I have 4 published novels. My 5th one is coming out this fall. If all goes as planned, it will be published on National Adoption Day in November,
Mm-hmm.
because the new series is on adoption. And that leads me into my next point with what happens once you finish the manuscript, because um, then you publish it, right? Which actually, no, just because you've got a finished manuscript, there's a whole lot of steps to go before you can hit that publish button. Everybody thinks just because you hit the end, it means it's done, right? No. And that's actually the stage I'm in right now is the pre-publication stage. You have to edit it. And again, this goes back to somebody else has to be able to read it.
All
And
right.
so there's developmental editing where you make sure there's no plot holes because a lot of times I miss plot holes where I think this all connects and it really doesn't. Something glaringly obvious is missing, right? And then you do line editing where you make sure all the commas are in there and you didn't miss a period and all the formatting is correct, right? Yeah, there's so much little crazy little details that go into a book to make it pretty. and readable and perfect. And you also have to not only have an editor read it, but you also have to have readers read it, because an editor looks at it very differently than what I do or what someone who actually purchases books do. So I have beta readers, people who read it before we actually hit publish. And then they're like, yeah, this is good, but this point is really boring, or at this point I just didn't understand. And so that really is helpful too, because then we can go back and look at, well, why did these readers like have an issue with this? And then we can fix it before we hit that publish button. So everybody thinks you hit the end and that's done, right? No, there's several more months of work, and then you have to, fix all these little tiny little minute things before you hit the publish button. And some people don't do that. And I've bought books where they didn't do this. And it's really annoying to me as a reader, because I'm looking at this going, that quotation mark is
You're like,
upside down.
uh-huh.
And I'm like, oh, that is so annoying. And that bothered me even before I wrote books, because I was like, did nobody take the time to figure that out? And now that I'm an author, it really bugs me like even more, because I'm like, oh no, hot no. Why did they do this?
Hot no.
That is
Hot no. I like that terminology. Hot no. I never heard that before.
oh, I say it all the time. I say it all the time. People find me funny. Anyways, yeah, it bothers me even more as an author, because I know how much those little details matter, and it really, really bugs me now that I'm an author. I'm like eagle eye spotting this stuff going, oh no, who edited this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, and I know some of this is really nitpicky, but it's really important, because it can interrupt a reader, and it can actually, some readers will actually put down a book if they find too much of this in like the first chapter. And so, you want your book to be as good as possible, not just words on the page, but even the formatting needs to be good. And you want it to be as perfect as possible. And of course,
Yeah.
nobody's perfect. And so, like, my first book, Road Home, was published in 2016, and someone pointed out an error just a few weeks ago.
Ah,
I'm like, wow, cool. We still haven't found them all. So I realize it's impossible for a book to be perfect. I understand this, but I really do work to try to get them as close as possible before I hit that publish button.
awesome. What else?
Yeah. But it is a lot of work. It is so much work, but it's a labor of love for me. I really do want my readers to get the best experience possible. And again, because I'm self-published, it's all in my hands. I have complete control over this. It's not just some publisher who's doing it wrong, right? It's all on me to get it as correct
Sorry
as
about
I.
that. My phone is not on silent.
Oh, it's okay. Technology defeats us yet again.
Exactly.
So then that magical day comes, you hit the publish button. And then that's when another point that a lot of people think, oh, it's over, right? You just sit back, watch the money come in, right? Wrong, because then you have to market it, right? There's so much more work to be done, because then I'm out there, I'm at events where I have a table where I stand on my feet for 10 hours and I try to convince people this is the best book you've ever heard of, right? Even though they've never heard of me or my book. As I watch people walk by me all day long, looking at me like I'm totally insane. Yes, it's awesome. And then, there's all this social media stuff that you have to do, and you have to figure out hashtags, and is a live video the best way to go, or a professional looking thing that you've done on Canva, or, there's my newsletter that I have to put out every month. There's my website that I have to keep looking pretty and updated constantly, right?
Yeah.
And there are various other things that I do. Like I occasionally will read another author's book, and then I will tell my readers about that book, and then they will tell their readers about my book. It's called an author swap. So, there's all these other moving parts that you do. So it's not just about writing this great book and then sending it out into the universe. You have to tell people about why they need to read your book. And this is another area that a lot of people, I think, don't understand how involved it is. And they're like, oh, yeah, you just sit on the beach all day, you come up with these great ideas. And I'm like, oh, do you have any idea what I do in a day? and I and I love getting emails from readers and I try to respond to them all. But it's gotten to the point where it's almost impossible. So I do have help, I have to say. I am almost a one-woman show, but not quite. I do have a virtual assistant. I have to be honest here. Because yeah,
Yeah, I mean, how could you do it alone? I don't know.
yeah. And because yeah, well, it is a solopreneur technically business. There are too many things to do. And so I do try to do as much as possible myself. And I do try to answer emails myself. There are days it is not possible for me to be 100 different things in one day. It's not possible. But it is again a labor of love. It is something I enjoy. It is my passion. And I love getting out there and I love speaking and I love doing podcasts and I love connecting with my readers. But it is hard. It is hard work. And I think a lot of people don't quite understand exactly what is involved. And so this gets to my kind of final point. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, so how do I get to be an author? And I'm like, are you rich?
You're like,
Is
ah.
something you want to do? Because it isn't easy. And I think a lot of people think that, oh, writing a book is easy. I'll just throw 100,000 words on a page and throw it
Mm-hmm.
out there to the universe. Yeah. Are you sure about that? Are you you really want to do this? Because it is not easy. And if you're not have fun doing it, it isn't something you should even try to do. You know, and I've talked to a lot of people and they're like, well, I tried writing once and it was just a real struggle. I'd like to do it again. And like, if it was a struggle before, why would you want to try to do it again? Because this isn't something you can struggle with and do well. It's just it's not that kind of a thing. It's not like, you know, I struggled to paint a wall and it came out eventually. You know, this isn't the same kind of a thing.
Got it. Well,
Yeah.
we are grateful that you're here. And if someone does want to purchase your books again, remind us how we do that, Leigh Lincoln, author.
LeighLincolnAuthor.com. That's Leigh, LincolnAuthor.com. All of the books are available for purchase on the website, and the links to go to Amazon are there. The links to my Facebook and Instagram are there. You can email me, you can sign up for my newsletter. It's all available on my website. Made it super
Perfect.
easy.
All right, we're still on a roll. We still have more time to talk. Go ahead.
So yeah, and if someone has a great idea and they're having fun writing, you know, the biggest advice I have is don't rush. Because a lot of people think, oh, you know, these big authors who put out a couple books a year, 4 or 5 books a year, you know, well, okay, they have help. They have a lot of help. They have way more help than I do. And so, no, you are not going to be able to do that. This is not a thing where you can just brush through it and, you know, no. And especially for me, again, like I said, I believe in quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
I want beautiful books. I don't want hastily put together books. And yeah, you can put together a book in 3 months. And will it how good is it going to be? But I'm not knocking anybody. I realize that people do this and I
Mm-hmm.
realize that they're kind of fluffy and light. But we need more quality books in this universe. We really do, because there are less and less of them every year that are quality books. And I had somebody the other day who heard how many books I read in a year, which is a lot. I read more than 300 books in a year because I binge read, not binge watch TV, because that's just me. And they were asking, what kind of books do I read? And I'm like, well, I really like the old school ones, like from the 1800s and Hemingway from the early 1900s, because they're quality books. They wrote differently back then
Mm-hmm.
than they do now. And because it was all about the the depth of where they were and what they were seeing, and it was a very different way of writing then than now. And so I love these old school books. And it was just it's a very different style of writing. And somebody was like, "Oh, but they're so heavy." And I'm like, "Yeah, exactly. They're heavy, not just in the words that they use, but the weight of the actual books, because there are way more pages than books now. Like Tolstoy, how many pages is that book, right? War
Yeah.
and Peace. Yeah, they're heavy, heavy books. And no, I am not trying to equate myself with them. Go goodness, no, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying those are the kind of books we need in this world. Though those are beautiful books, and they have meaning and they have value. And we need more books like that.
Yeah.
And I'm doing my little part, but I'm certainly not going to compare myself to Toy Story or Hemingway, or yeah, even Agatha Christie. I'm not on her level either. So I'm not saying I am.
Toy Story. Oh my gosh. Yeah, my kids are 6 and 8. So yeah, we're just, it's, reading books every night. We just went back to school this week. We lagged a few days and we started. It was so good to get back into the routine of reading every night.
And that's important. And we need to go back to reading with our children and start them
Mm-hmm.
young, because so many kids nowadays don't read. And I was reading an article about how children learn differently when they're reading a book
Mm-hmm.
versus looking at a tablet. There's this mind body connection that happens when they're holding a physical book
Okay.
versus a
Yeah.
tablet. And we're actually doing them a disservice by handing them a tablet. And there's something about the physical tactile sensation of holding a book and reading a book that is you cannot physically get from
Mm-hmm.
holding a tablet. Even though the words are the same, it isn't the words that's making the difference. And I thought that was really interesting, that we've really gone so far that we're now actually making it where a part of our children's brains are not developing properly
Mm-hmm.
because we're throwing this tablet at them. And yeah, I'm not saying tablets are bad, but I am saying that they have a place and books have a place as well. And a lot of parents, I think, are losing that, and in this digital age. And I'm totally old school. I love books. I love the way they smell. I love the way they crinkle. I love the way they feel, especially, like I say, the ones that have weight. I love just holding a book.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but again, I am older, and that's okay. But I think our children need to know that lesson as well. And that was kind of the point of this article that I read, is that children need this, and it's important for their development.
Yes. Well, thank you for being here, for joining us. And if we want to reach out to you again, remind us.
It's LeighLincolnAuthor.com. That's Leigh
Oh,
LincolnAuthor.com.
perfect. Well, thank you again for being here and discussing more about you as an author and what can we expect next from you.
My next book, Lost Father, will be coming out this fall. It's the first book in my new series, Path to Family, and it focuses on a birth father and his whole journey after he got his girlfriend pregnant until the moment his now adult
Wow.
child reaches out.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you again. We appreciate it. And we'll talk soon. Looking forward to it, Leigh Lincoln. Glad everyone is safe and sound. Have a fantastic day and have a great rest of the week. All right. Let's get through it.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.